Hello there, welcome back to another show. Today I'm talking about Waxworks, which is the Paul Leni anthology film from Germany from the mid-20s. This is before he went over to America. But Paul Leni was a director who died just as he started to become a big thing in America. Like, he did a film called Cat and the Canary, which was an important film for creating a genre of like the old dark house and things like that. He also did, when he was in Germany, he did this film. When he moved over, he did The Man Who Laughs, which was the film that inspired the Joker. Look, so he did a lot of, in his short life he did some important films, but he died of blood poisoning fairly early on, which means his partnership with Conrad Veidt ended pretty quickly, and Conrad Veidt never quite found the same collaborator elsewhere, even though he did a lot of good stuff. But Waxworks is a wonderful film. It's on Eureka. You get the film, you get a little bit from Kim Newman, you get different scores, so and you get commentary. It's a really good package. You also get a very good transfer of the film. It looks beautiful. Eureka are basically the masters of silent film. They're the ones to go for silent film. If there's any silent film, you hope they get it to do a release, because they know the people to talk to about it, so the extras are good. They know how to actually restore it properly. They have respect for the fact there's different scores, so they'll include all the scores. They're just the best at silent film. They're just the ones who really understand silent film. Criterion does some silent film, but I mean Criterion knows that Eureka's kind of where it's at for silent film. It's like, even Criterion backs off and lets Eureka handle it. So it was one of those films that was hard to find for a long time. There was problems with the prints. There's problems just finding it really. And I had to go back and find different. I had to redo some of the intertitles because of damage done to the prints and things. So they had to be. The restoration took a while. Restoration was pretty difficult, but it is one of the German expressionist films. As you can see from the picture, very German expressionist. This is post Caligari, post Nosferatu. This film had all the big horror stars of the German expressionism. And basically the big German stars. You've got Conrad Veidt, you've got Emil Jennings, and you've got Caligari himself, whose name I always forget. So I'm going to try and find it here, because, right, Werner Krauss. I always forget his name. Don't know, but it's just one of those things. So, Krauss actually has the smallest part, really. He's just the Jack the Ripper at the end. It's basically two stories and an epilogue. He also welcomed Dietriche, who went on to be a big director in America. He's the leading man in this film. He was already a director at this point, but I think he made this film just to make some money while he was doing his own stuff. So it was just a part for him before he went off and became really a director. So you have the big names. It's a big prestige production. As Kim Newman points out in his piece on it, basically this was still in filmmaking. Still wasn't quite sure what it was going to be, because he still had anthology films. He still had shorter films. I mean, he still had the people like Chaplin, Buster Keaton moving from shorter films to longer films this time. People are still trying to find what the structure of filmmaking was going to be. And so this was one of those films that was in that kind of period where people were still working it out. But so they basically put a few stories together with the idea of a Waxworks as a joining thing. This is the best film you'll see with the title Waxworks. That's the easiest way to start with. It's also a film that has one great one of the stories is amazing, another one's not as good, and the finale's terrific. So it's one of those films I'd definitely say the second half is better than the first. The first half is good, you're going to enjoy it, but the second half is better. The second half's got the stories that the director really seems to love. So the story basically is, this writer is going through this carnival. He's looking for work. So he finds work in his Waxworks. So they're looking for someone to write the stories that'll go with the Waxworks to entertain the crowd, to see them how they got this way. So he has to write a story about how the Sultan lost his arm in one story. That's the first story. That's Emil Jennings as the Sultan, over the top, really fat in this one. There's tons of makeup on. It's it's a really broad performance. Well, Dietriche is the guy who's the baker who causes all this trouble. He's a wife who, because Dietrich and an actress play the two workers at the Marx Museum. He obviously fancies her. But when you get into the stories, they play the couples and the dramatic leads in the stories as well. So he's trying to impress his wife, who's not impressed with him. And so he goes to try and steal something from the Sultan and kill the Sultan and stuff like that to prove he's a man. And hijinks ensue, and he ends up getting chased all over the place. And the Sultan at the same time is trying to woo his wife because Sultan's a bit of a scumbag. This is the longest story, and the big problem is it's too long. It takes too long to get to the point. As soon as you get to the actual action of the piece, it works beautifully. The atmosphere is beautiful because all those expressionism, but it's also set in Islamic countries, so you've got expressionism mixed with a different culture, which gives an interesting take. So it's this is meant to be an Islamic country in the picture, but it's also very expressionistic. So it's a really interesting look. The acting's terrific, but it's just too long, which is why I say it takes a while to go in the film, because this first story just lacks that pacing the rest of the films have. The second story is the best one. The second story is Conrad Veidt as Ivan the Terrible. He's amazing as Ivan the Terrible. He is just stunningly good. He's silent and he's miming the whole time, but he is terrifying as Ivan the Terrible. He just looks insane. It looks like something mentally wrong with this guy. He's a guy who will kill anybody, and a guy who's very sly. And he's just so devious and so horrible. He will kill his own men if he suspects them of any impropriety. He will sacrifice people that he knows if he thinks they're trying to fool him. Or, if just to save his own skin, he will throw someone in front of him to get killed instead. And there's an amazing bit where he kidnaps the bride from a wedding, and then when the husband objects, he sends him to the torture chamber. The torture chamber is used a lot in this film, and the references to it is quite a bit. This is a guy so psychotic, he's got his own poison maker. That's his only job, to make poison. And at the start of the segment, he gets paranoid with the poison maker, which leads to his own undoing. But it's just a wonderful... I don't want to give away all the different things, but it is wonderful, and Veidt goes from crazy to subtle, then crazy again. He's actually subtle within the craziness. He's that kind of Jack Nicholson Shining feel, and others. He's broad and small at the same time, and it's a really interesting look. So Waxworks is worth it just for this one section, and just for Conrad Veidt. He is so good in this film. But this one section is 25 minutes long, and it's perfectly paced. It's so wonderful. The production design is beautiful. It's very German expressionist, but also has a very Russian feel to it. Some of the designs, it's just amazing. It's easily one of the best silent film. 25 minutes you can get in silent film from Germany. It's so good. The final bit is basically a small section. This is a payoff as the writer falls asleep and dreams of the Jack the Ripper rip-off called Spring Jack, who's following through London and trying to kill him and his girl, but then wakes up. It's a little thing at the end, just another bit of atmosphere, but it's terrifically shot and it's really well done. It's like so much imagination we go into this one, and this is played by Werner Krauss, who's of course Caligari. So I mean, even at its worst, this film is great. The worst problem it has is pace in the first story. That's the worst thing it's got going for it. The rest of it is brilliant, though. It's a brilliant film. I'd highly recommend buying it. and supporting Eureka, because it really, this is what Eureka's here for, to bring in these kind of films that are hard to find. This is a great example of one. And it just is wonderful. It's just a wonderful film. I don't want to give away tons of stuff about it. I just try to explain the atmosphere of it and what's going on. But it is just a terrific film. Okay, I should say before I end, like, what's disturbing in the film is 2 of the 3 actors became Nazi collaborators. Basically, Emil, Jennings and Werner Krauss became notorious collaborators who lost their careers after the war because they were anti-Semites, basically, and were very pro-Nazi. Meanwhile, Conrad Veidt had a Jewish wife. He left the country and basically had a thing in his contract saying he would only play villains because he was German. He'd only play villains in films because he didn't want to put a good thing across about Germany, because how awful it was at the time because of the Nazis. So 2 different career paths. He did Conrad Veidt one, which was a very he gave up his career because he knew it was the right thing to do to leave Germany, and he would not collaborate with any of the other 2 who collaborated and who were horrible people. They were big stars. They had the option of leaving. They did not leave. They stayed and collaborated. I mean, they were big enough they could have gone to their countries and said, we don't agree with this, but they never. They took the money. They took the hatred, and they deserved what they got, really. Because both of them were unemployable after the war because of their actions. So that's the downside. I mean, so basically, Paul Leni died, and Conrad Veidt basically had to leave the country. Then he died during the war as well. He didn't even live to see the end of the Nazis because he died of a heart attack in 42, 43, just after Casablanca was made, which he starred in. So it's a tragic story where no one, the only person who came out of this film, well, Dietriche really, who came out okay because he had a good career in America and did well for himself. That's the only one who got out alive in any way in this film. So that's a little history lesson. Hope you enjoyed that as well. Okay, well, I'll see you later with another video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Bye for now.